So the other thing Obama said in his chancellor-esque speech the other day was that you can't have too much regulation. He thinks that we don't have enough, even though there are hundreds of thousands of pages of government regulation in place today. So what is the real cost of regulation? Answer, look to the past. It is easy. Let's bring in Andy Andrews. He is the author of, you usually write happy, uplifting books,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, they're a lot. That's not a real touchy-feely title.
Yeah, okay. How do you kill 11 million people? Tell me the premise. First of all, why did you write this? Because this is not what you write.
This is not what I usually write, but this was the answer to a question that I asked myself in prayer for 5 years. And my question was, can I write something that doesn't say Republican, doesn't say Democrat, doesn't say liberal or conservative, and yet every single person who reads it would agree with it? That was my, and I didn't know that the answer, or that the question had an answer, frankly. Anytime we confront somebody's worldview directly, what they already passionately believe, it's a waste of time. In fact, you may keep them so immersed in what they think that they become stronger in their beliefs. However, if we can find one thing that everybody agrees with, that we move together and then begin to go into other areas, that is the essence of influence. And so the one thing that everybody agrees on, that your aunt who is so crazy and your uncle who is a communist, the one thing that everybody, you could walk out on the street, ask everybody, you say, do you think that it's okay for politicians to lie, or should they tell the truth? Every one of them will say, oh, they should tell the truth, even if they're lying about it. Right? Because that's one thing that we do agree on. And so this idea, because this obviously didn't happen, immediately, but the policy of lies.
Go here.
Yeah, can I hijack your board?
Yeah.
There was actually a written policy of lies. See, Adolf Eichmann was like the master. He was the one who was put in charge of the final solution for the Jews. And he ran this thing like a multinational corporation. He hired executives, basically. He responded with rewards to goals that were hit, and the goals that weren't set, he fired people, got rid of them. So there was a policy of lies written down that allowed them to kill these people. The first one was, as the ghettos were surrounded, they weren't ghettos at that point, they were towns and villages and parts of cities, and they would surround them with barbed wire, and these later became known as ghettos, but they were explained as temporary necessities of war. You know, the front is going back and forth, we don't know where everybody is, we want to keep your children in place, so you continue your business. This is just temporary, continue your business, go to schools, go to church, do whatever you do.
For your protection.
For your protection. It was the very first lie.
Hold on just a second. I want to show you something. Has anybody been to Poland?
No.
You've been to Poland? Have you been to the ghetto?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not kidding you. Come over to the American Dream Lab doors, and you will verify that it's at least this big. The ghetto walls went from barbed wire, and you can see the changes in the brick, and they kept making it higher and higher and higher, right? It's that high, isn't it? The ghetto walls are that high.
Yeah.
And you can see the way they just kept adding to it, and they were like, well, you know, we got to keep you safe. We got to keep, well, there's some problems out there. All they were doing is walling both sides off.
Right.
And making sure that you didn't even, that it left the conscience and the mind of the rest of the population.
Right.
You were just invisible. You couldn't hear, you couldn't see. There was no possibility of what's on the other side of the wall. And so the other side of the wall just blocked it off.
Right. But it's temporary. It's temporary, okay? And so the second thing they did, this is a beautiful lie. They sent officials inside the wall at night to meet with the Jewish leaders and take bribes from the Jewish leaders. And these bribes were in exchange for better living conditions. Now get this, here's why they accepted bribes and they took the bribes, is because the Jewish leaders went back and thought, well, if they're taking our money, obviously they're not going to kill us, because if they were just going to kill us and take everything anyway, they wouldn't bribe us, so we're okay. See, they took the bribes to keep them from escaping, keep them from fighting, saying, okay, so this is temporary.
It's the same thing with take your suitcase. Take your clothes, come with you, you're going to a gas chamber. Take your suitcase, bring it all. It's the same kind of lie. May I interrupt one more time?
Sure, absolutely.
I know I'm wrecking your rhythm here, but if we can look at today, it is the question that everyone asks me over and over again. Well, but they're capitalists. Why would they do this? It's the same thing.
Man, one of the most amazing thing about a lie is that we have been brought up to tell the truth. We've been brought up to do the right thing. And it's really hard for us to believe that somebody can look us in the eye and lie to us. It's just so, because over and over you say, look what he's doing. No, he said, but
right.
Look what he's doing. No, don't you remember in the speech he said he was not going to do that, but he's doing it. Yeah, but he said, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. So the last thing they did, and remember, they'll meet all the Jewish fathers now. They would send, Eichmann would do it himself, or send officials in and get all the Jewish men together. Now, you understand, there's thousands of them, okay? And so less than 30 officials would go in, less than half of those armed, so less than 15 guns. And Eichmann or one of the other people, I found the exact speech that they used over and over again. If you don't mind, I'll read the exact speech. Jews, at last it can be reported to you that the Russians are advancing on our eastern front. I apologize for the hasty way we brought you into our protection. Unfortunately, there was little time to explain. You have nothing to worry about. We want only the best for you. You will leave here shortly and be sent to very fine places indeed. You will work there, your wives will stay at home, and your children will go to school. You will have wonderful lives. We will all be terribly crowded on the trains, but the journey is short. Men, please keep your families together and board the rail cars in an orderly manner. Quickly, my friends, we must hurry.
15 guns.
And they loaded them onto rail cars that were designed for 8 cows, no less than 100 in each car. And when they put them in and padlocked them, at that point, it was over, because the trains never stopped until they reached death camps. And I've got the footnoted numbers of the death camps, and it's unbelievable to see that the German ministry, their own work in 1967 names more than 1,100 death camps and subcamps accessible by rail. The Jewish Virtual Library says it is estimated the Nazis established 15,000 camps in the occupied countries.
You don't have to go to Germany. They did it in Hungary by themselves. Americans did barbaric things to African Americans. I'm going to show you in a couple of weeks some things that I have from Salem, Massachusetts. I have the original round-them-up documents. They're witches. Don't tell me it can't happen here. It already has happened here. Yeah, it just looks different every time. It doesn't look the same.
Right.
We have to take a break.
Okay.
When we come back, I want to go here, because you're not going to believe this. I've been making a list of the stars and the triangles. Because it's important.
Yeah, people
if you understand progressives, who's wearing the stars and triangles on both the left and the right? If somebody grabs power here, who wears the stars and the program? Who are the first? Who are they? Because most people think this is about, he's talking about the Jews again. Oh, he's talking about the Jews again. Oh, the yellow stars. That'll never happen.
Wait till you hear.
You're wearing a cleric collar. Let's see if I believe it was purple, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Purple. Catholic priests or any Christian leaders that disagreed. You're one of the first to get a star. You get a little triangle, purple triangle. We'll talk a little bit more about this and then go back to David Barton and try to tie all this together on positive things. The first step is to recognize that the truth matters. The truth matters. Next. Because the answer is, how do you kill them? You lie to them. You lie to them. And if you look at this, and we're not going to spend much time on this, the stars, first, the Jews, then the Gypsies and the Italians. The purple triangle was Jehovah's Witnesses, Catholic priests, and Christian leaders. Black was for vagrants. Blue for people who moved to Germany. Red, political nonconformists. In other words, people who weren't PC. Red was political nonconformists. Pink, homosexuals and sex offenders. Green, thieves and murderers. But here's what's important. Tell me about the green. The thieves and the murderers.
Because they were not suspect politically, they were the ones put in charge of the others.
So there's no honor among thieves, right? They took the ones without any honor and had them police everybody else. It's really nefarious, and it all starts with lies. So,
and everybody thinks that it was all Jews. But of the 11 million people, only 6 million were Jews. 5 million of these people saw this happening. They saw the yellow stars before they got their own colors.
Yeah. The number that people have to remember is not 11 million. It's 10%.
10%.
10%. How many people were involved in doing this?
A population in Germany of 79.7 million. At the height of its power, the Nazi Party only had 8.5 million members. 10% of that population who did something was able to move that entire thing into horror.
I want to show this real quick, and we'll do it some other time. This is an extremely rare document. David's collecting the happy stuff. I'm collecting the sad stuff. This is all in German. It was done by the American forces. And honestly, I have only opened it once, and I've only looked at about 3 pages. This is the original magazine printed on the spot when we found the concentration camps. It's full of pictures. In fact, the day I bought this, I didn't know it at the time. I had lunch with Elie Wiesel. He's in a concentration camp in this magazine. And basically, it was to show the 90%, this is what you have done. This is what you've done. Most Germans, the reason why it's so rare is most Germans took it and threw it in the fire because it is horrific.
Right.
But it does take 10%. But flip that around. If it takes 10% of the population to do this, it also means that only 10% of the population can turn it around for good.
See, the good thing, some people think the people who don't vote, that's so horrible. And it is horrible in a way. However, it shows us the amount of people that we can get together. Glenn last night said, I will. This takes us to talk to these people. And frankly, I got this so that you could give it to somebody, say, read this before you go to bed. Just promise me it'll take you 15 minutes. And so, because if you look at what has happened in the past 25 years, there's not been a single presidential election that has been won by more than 10 million votes. Every single one of them has been that close. Yet, in the past 25 years, there's not been a single presidential election that has had fewer than 100 million people of voting age who did not vote. Of those 100 million, 65 million of them identify themselves as Christians. Now, what we're seeing is we have the ability to, because these people think they can't do anything. Well, see, this book is proof. With these facts, this is proof. A very few amount of people can do something. And so we can. There's 545 people in America right now responsible for every law, every budget, everything that's enacted upon the American people. 1 president, 9 Supreme Court justices, 100 senators, and 435 members of Congress. At our last census, there's 311 million of us, 545 of them. Now, there's some good ones in there, but this is our country. It's our country. And it is time for us to educate ourselves, just like David said, to educate ourselves, to educate our friends, to find out what we do agree on and move from there. And I promise you, this 100 million that's not voting, I mean, they will agree that the truth should be told and heard.
I will